Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phay, and welcome to the channel. You know, I heard on the news the other day that some guy was going around stealing wheels off of police cars. The police are working tirelessly to catch him. Today, we're taking a look at Return to Dark Tower from Restoration Games. Return to Dark Tower from Restoration Games is a 1 to 4 player cooperative game where you're going to be playing one of the heroes of the four lands. Now, what you have to do is you're going to have to unite and work together to try to basically go back to the tower, and you're basically trying to restore order from the adversary that's trying to take over. All right. There's going to be creatures going throughout the lands. They're going to be taking over the villages, the sanctuaries. You have to try to keep all that corruption out of the way. Meanwhile, you need to quest. You need to try to find companions. You need to try to get items. There is a lot going on. But can you do it within the 6-month time before the Dark Tower falls? Tell you what, let me explain how to play the game, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. So in order to play Return to Dark Tower, the first thing you gotta do is set up the game. Now, it is an app game, so there's only so much you can do without using the app up front. You're gonna set up the board, you're gonna put the tower in the middle, go ahead and turn it on at this point, and every player is gonna select whatever character they wanna play, all right? Once that's done, you're going to fire up the app and you're going to start the game, and you're just going to answer all the questions, tell you which characters everyone's playing, what bad guys you're going to be going up against, and everything else. Once that's done, you're actually ready to start playing the game. Now, the game is going to go over last 6 months, okay, and you have to complete it by the end of the 6th month. Now, the very first month of the game, there's only one turn that every player is going to take, and then it's going to take you right into the second month, but there's no events or anything else, so it's just kind of a get you going type of month. But what's a turn going to look like, and what are you going to be able to do? All right. So what's going to happen is on your turn, there's 3 phases. You have the start of turn phase, which is going to be your banner action. You have the middle of the turn phase, and then you have the end of turn phase where you're going to actually drop a skull into the tower. Let's talk about each one of those. The start of turn is your banner action. Now, your banner action, you don't have to take if you really don't want to. It's totally optional. Each character that comes in the base game is going to have a different banner action, all right? One of the characters is going to be able to move to any location within their current kingdom. One's going to get a free potion. Another one's going to get 5 warriors. Another one's going to get a free spirit. Okay. Once you've taken your banner action, now you go to the middle of the turn. The middle of the turn has got 3 different sections that you can do, and you can do them in any order. The first one is move. Every character's got a move value. Now you can always spend 1 spirit and you can double your move, but you have to spend that 1 spirit before you take your first step. So you got to decide right up front if you want to do it or not. Okay. Now, the nice thing about move is you can actually move, do an action, and continue moving. So you can always break up your move with the different actions that you're going to be taking. Now, when we go into the heroic actions, what the heroic actions are going to do is you're going to choose one. You can either cleanse, you can battle, or you can quest. Cleanse is going to allow you to take all of the skulls off of one of the locations that you're currently at and put them back into the supply. Keeping the skulls off of everything is going to help, keep your sanctuaries, your villages, your citadels, and everything, and keep them from being destroyed. Also, if you ever go to put a skull into the tower at the end of your turn and there are no skulls, the game's over and you're going to lose. You can battle. Okay, to battle, what you're going to do is you're actually going to go to the app. You got to be on the same space as one of the bad guys, and you're going to click on the battle icon. Once you click on the battle icon, it's going to say what creature do you want to battle. You click on him. You have to select a number of cards equal to whatever his skill level is, and then you have to walk through those cards. Now, you can get advantages in this game, your character can, and those different advantages are going to help you depending on the bad guy that you're going against. So if he has an advantage that you can use like melee or magic, if you have pluses on those, you can use those advantages to help make those cards just a little bit easier to manage. All right. If you ever try to complete a card and you cannot fully complete that card, then what you have to do is you'll still pass the card, but you have to take a corruption. If you have another card that you got to follow up with and the same thing happens, you have to take a second corruption and you go on. But regardless, you're always going to be able to defeat the enemy no matter what. You're just taking all that corruption that you may or may not have to take in order to get to the defeated point. Okay. But that's it. So once the battle is done, then you bounce back out, you put him off, and your battling's done. The last thing you can do is quest. Now, most of the quests are going to have, basically, you're going to go to location. You're going to have to discard a number of items or whatever it says to do, and you just click and hold the button down, and it's going to complete the quest, and you get whatever said item is. There's also quests where you might go into a dungeon. Now, the dungeon ones are a little bit different because the dungeon, you're going to go into a room, you're going to pick a direction, you're going to have to deal with whatever that room has. It's going to tell you, lose some warriors or whatever it might be. Okay. If you can complete that, you go to the next dungeon. Now, you can always back out at any point in time if you decide you don't want to go any further. All right. But if you ever can't complete a room or something like that, you'll still complete the room, but you'll take, again, another corruption. All right. And then you leave. Now, if you ever get to the final room, wherever it may be inside of that dungeon, okay, then you're going to be able to get whatever that item has. So those are going to be a little bit different than your standard normal quests. Okay. But regardless, once you finish your heroic action, if you do a heroic action, you're going to gain 2 spirit. If you do not do the cleanse, battle, or quest, you do not gain the spirit. So you always have to try to do 1 every turn. The next thing you can do is you can do a reinforced action. Now, a reinforced action, depending on where you're at, depends on what you're going to be able to do. And I'm going to have to use my cheat sheet on this one. So there's 4 locations: the Citadel, the Sanctuary, the Village, and the Bazaar. Now, if you look to the right of those, every single one of those has got a free action. You can always do the free action when you're there. Okay, but they also have an action below them that's going to allow you to spend spirit. Okay, like the Citadel, you can spend 5 spirit to gain a virtue, for example. The Bazaar, you can spend 2 to gain a treasure card. You cannot do the free action and the spirit action unless for some reason you have a special card or ability that allows you to be able to take both actions. Okay, but the one nice thing about the reinforced action you can do is when you do a reinforce, you can always roll the haggle die. Now, if you roll the haggle die, there's a couple blanks. Okay, if you come up with the blanks, you just do your reinforced action like normal. If you come up with, I think it's the little man icon, I think is what it is, then that's going to defeat it. You're going to lose your reinforced action. You won't be able to do it that particular turn. But otherwise, you're going to have the gear icon, which is going to get you a gear, and then you have the warrior icon, which is going to get you, I think it's 3 warriors, and there's another icon, I think, to get you a potion. Okay, so you have the potential to get some free stuff as well, which is really, really nice. It's a 2 in 6 chance that you're not going to be able to do the action at all. So a lot of times it's worth it. Okay, but you're going to be able to take one of those actions and you're good to go. So remember, you can move, you can do a heroic action, and you can reinforce, and you can do your move in between all of those as well. Once you're done with all of that, then what you're going to do is you're going to take a skull from the supply and you're going to drop it into the center of the tower. Once you drop it in the center of the tower, the app is going to know that it's there, and it may do something at that point. What it may do is it may come up and it may say, hey, there's an event that's going to happen, and tell you what to do. You just follow the instructions that are on the app. Okay. If it tells you to put something on the board, you put something on the board, and you just keep going and going and going. And that's it. That's the basics of the game. You're just going to run around the board, and you're going to try to go to all the different questing things, and you're going to try to do whatever you need to do to complete the main quest. So the main quest is always going to have your one little standee that's going to tell you where to go. Once you go to that and you complete that quest, then the main bad guy, he's a level 5 bad guy, he's going to come on the board, and the app's going to tell you where he comes onto the board. Wherever he is at, you have to go and defeat him. And remember, you have till the end of the 6th month to do it. Okay. When you get to him, the difference between him and the other guys is whatever their level is, whenever you go to fight the bad guys, whatever their level is, that's the number of cards that you have to make it through. Okay. So if it's a level 2, you have to do 2 cards. If it's a level 4, you have to do 4 cards. Well, he's a level 5, and you always have to do 5 cards. But the nice thing about him is you can retreat from him if you have to. So once you start working on a card, if you pass 1 card, you can actually retreat, go away, but the app's going to remember what progress you've made on that one particular card. So the next time someone goes in there, they still have to do 5 cards, but if they draw that same card again, then the nice thing is you've already progressed partway into that card, so that one's going to be just a little bit easier. Okay, but that's it. So that's how you're going to win the game within the 6 months. Is you have to do that. Now, one of the things to remember too is all of the months, you don't know how many turns you're going to be able to take on every single one of the months. I'm trying to find, I know there's a little cheat sheet somewhere on here that tells me exactly how many it is. So for example, if you're playing a 4-player game, okay, you might be able to take a total of an average of 9 turns for that one particular month. It could be 7 turns. It could be 10 turns. You don't really know, but it's going to be somewhere in there. Okay. So you always got to keep in mind that the month's going to potentially end. Now, all those quests that come out, you have to do, they always come out at the beginning of the month, and you have to complete the quest by the end of the month. If you don't complete them, they go away. The adversary quest, that's going to basically put tougher cards into the bad guys pile. And then the other quest is basically going to be something good for you. So you always want to try to do them if you can, because they will probably both be very beneficial towards the end of the game. But that's the nuts and bolts of the game. There's a lot more stuff going on with glyphs and trading and other things like that. But I'll cover a little bit more of that when I get into my final thoughts. I just kind of want to give you an idea of how the game plays. So remember, go through, do all your actions, keep going around, 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 do your main quest, try to get the bad guy on the table. If you can manage to go in, kill that bad guy, take out all 5 of his cards by the end of the 6th month, you win. Return to Dark Tower. Okay, folks, there you go. That was like a really super high level for how to play this game. There's a lot going on in this game, but then again, to me, there's not a lot going on because it depends on which bad guys come out, and which ones you're playing. More stuff may or may not happen. Okay. And there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff because there's a lot of stuff I could have covered in the rules explanation, but I think a lot of you've already kind of have an idea how the game plays. At this point, this game's been out for so long. I think a lot of people are just kind of looking at people's final thoughts. What do people think about the game today or whatnot? And that's what I'm here to do. Okay. So what do I think about the game? Well, I'm going to tell you a spoiler right now. I think this is one of the best fantasy games out there, and this game needs to be played. Oh my gosh, is this game so good. Now, I first played this game a few months back. I remember it was on my birthday. Cody came over to the house. Our buddy Tom came over with us, and there was a 3-player. We all played it for the very first time, and we just looked at each other and went, oh my gosh, what did we just play? It was absolutely fantastic. I had to go get the game after that. I had looked at this game for so long, never got it, but once I played it, I just had to get it. It was so good. And then I ended up playing it again the other day with a different game group, and everyone was just, oh my gosh, that was a really good game. Let's play it again next week. And so this is now in our rotation to play, and it is so good. Okay. But what do I think about the game, and what do I think about the features of the game? Here we go. Now, I love the fact that all 4 of the characters are a little bit different. All right. They all have a different banner action, which is fantastic. So they're not all going to be the same. Now, the one thing I didn't talk about is when you set up your character, you're going to have every character has 2 virtues. And depending on what homeland you start in, you're going to get a virtue for that homeland, which is going to get you a bonus of some kind. Okay. Which is, I believe it's going to give you an advantage to fighting in certain types of terrain, is what it is. But then every character also has 3 more virtues. Now, those virtues all start locked. Okay. So in order to unlock those virtues, what you have to do is you actually have to go to, and I need to keep looking, you have to go to the Citadel. You go to the Citadel, you spend 5 spirit, and you can unlock one of your virtues. Now, some of the quests say that, you know what, in order to complete this quest, you have to have 4 or 5 virtues unlocked. Great. You now know how to do it. Go get your spirit, go unlock those virtues. Those virtues are going to give you some bonuses. If you don't need to unlock them, they may not benefit you this one particular game. You may not have to. So that's one of the cool things is all the virtues are different for every character, but not every character necessarily has to unlock them. I think the last game I played, one person unlocked one of their virtues for their character the whole entire game, and we did fine. Okay, so that's actually really cool. You get corruption if you cannot complete the cards, but you can always go to the sanctuary. You can spend 5 spirit, and you can get rid of all the corruption. Corruption is really bad because it's going to throw a lot of negatives out there. They're going to cause a lot of problems. Okay. So you have to make sure that you take care of your corruption as soon as you can. Get the spirits, get to the Citadel, get it taken care of. All right. Go to the village, and the village is going to get you a bunch of warriors. You're going to get 12 warriors for 1 spirit, but you're going to get 6 just for free. And I'll tell you what, you always want to make sure you have a bunch of warriors in play. I think the last game, like I said, the last game we played, events would pop out, and we're like losing 12 warriors per turn just because. I mean, no way to get around it. We just do it. All right. So you always want to make sure you have warriors on your hand, and it's always smart to have a couple spirit on your hand as well, just because you never know when an event might come up and say, hey, you have to spend spirit or take a corruption. Okay. If you ever have 2 corruption, the urgency to get that corruption taken off your board is really, really high. If you ever take a 3rd corruption, game's over. Okay. Everyone's either going to win together or everyone's going to lose together. And that's one of the ways to lose is by gaining the 3rd corruption. The other ways to lose is by not being able to complete the quest, the main quest by the end of the 6th month, or if you go to put a skull in the tower and there are no skulls left. Okay, so you always need to make sure you do that. But otherwise, that's about it for the reinforcements. Now, some of the things that I think are really, really unique about this game is I love the heroic actions. I love the fact that if you do a heroic action, you're going to gain a couple spirit. If you don't do a heroic action, you don't get the spirit. So, which means a couple different things. You're going to have battles all over the board, but you might not necessarily want to battle every turn because you may not have the spirit or you may not have the warriors to be able to do it. Okay, so battling is not always an option. Questing isn't always an option because there's only usually a couple quests out there per turn, and depending on how many players are, you're not going to be able to quest every turn, so you have to do a lot of cleansing as well. So cleansing is one of those things where you want to keep the skulls off the board because you want to make sure you have them in a supply. But then again, you don't want all of them off the board. You want to make sure that you have them in your different villages and whatnot, so that you can at least go do a cleanse action so you can gain that spirit, because that's the easiest way to gain spirit. All right. Otherwise, you got to go to the sanctuary and you only get one. So at least trying to keep a couple of the cleanse or the skulls on there so you can at least do some cleansing action is always a smart thing to do. Never fully get rid of those skulls. Now, one of the things the tower will do is when you dump the skulls in that tower, it gets stingy sometimes and it just holds onto those skulls. So sometimes it turns, it starts rotating, and it just dumps like 8 to 10 skulls at a time, and they just get pilfered all over your board. All right. So yes, in those situations, if it looks like you're running low and the tower's hogging them up, you have to make sure you get them off your board, but then again, spread them out nicely when you get them back on. Okay. You just kind of have to play it smart, watch your events, and the events kind of repeat themselves a little bit. So you kind of further into the game you go, the bad guys get tougher, but you kind of see what the events are like, and you kind of have an understanding of what you have to make sure you try to do every single turn. Okay. All of those are absolutely fantastic. The treasure cards, you can only have 4. If you ever get a 5th one, of course, then you have to get rid of 1, and they just go to the bottom of the deck. The treasure cards aren't hard to get, and they're nice little things you can get. Sometimes you have to actually discard them and spend them to get the advantages. Sometimes you don't, but it's just kind of nice the way they work. Potions are the same way. I think there's only there's a deck of potions, but there's like a couple, 3 or 4 of every one of them or something like that. So there's not a huge variety of potions, but they're going to give you those bonuses you may need in combat. And the same with your gear. There's 6 different items you can get. There's 3 of every item. So in a 4-player game, not everyone's going to be able to get every item. In a 3-player game, they can. Okay. And getting those gear items, it's just going to help you out. You can carry as much gear as you want as well. But all that stuff is absolutely fantastic. Now, one of the really super cool things I really like about this game is on the tower. Now, the tower is going to be kicking those doors off, and it's going to be opening up those holes, so stuff is just going to be dropping out. But the cool thing is it has these glyphs that are on the inside, okay? And if a glyph ever shows up on an open door on your side of the tower, you have to look at your character board and you have to see what that glyph goes to. And anytime you want to be able to do that action, if that glyph is facing your home world, doesn't matter where you are. Okay, so say it's showing the banner icon. When you go to take that banner action, if you want to take that banner action, you have to spend 1 spirit. If you don't spend the spirit, you can't do anything at all. Now, I do believe there's like a treasure card or a potion or something like that that might allow you to get around that. But otherwise, no, so you have to pay attention to those glyphs. That's one of those rules that's kind of really hard to remember. I think they kind of put it in the back or something like that, saying, hey, this is something to remember. It's like spending the extra spirit to do the double move. Okay, the double move is always really nice because you can get around the board a whole lot faster. Okay, very nice. You can get where you're going to go. And I mean, if you got a base movement of, like Spy Master's got a base movement of 4. So if you're moving 8 or potentially 10, if you get the +1 gear, I mean, you could bounce one section of the board, do a cleanse, run over someplace else, and you can do an action at the bazaar or whatever you want to do. You can get around the board really, really fast and do a lot of cool things. Okay. But otherwise, that's basically it. You're running around the board and you're just taking all these different actions. It's a really smooth, elegant game. The app doesn't overcomplicate things. I've seen some apps that just do way too much. It's like you spend more time in the app than you do anything else. This game here is pretty much just the opposite. You do your whole entire turn. The only thing you have to go to the app for is if you need to complete the quest or you need to fight a guy, and you got to do a couple things on there. Otherwise, it's at the end of your turn, you figure out what your events are. And that's basically about it. Not super complex. It's got a couple little fiddly rules. It's got a couple things you got to learn to remember. But you know what? Once you get through your first game, you find out that this game's actually really, really simple to play and really smooth to play. And I absolutely love this game. It is probably one of my favorite fantasy board games right now. I've got a couple that are really high up on that list. But when it comes to me in the fantasy world and playing a game, this one's right there on the top. App or no. And I'm not a super big guy that likes app-driven games. I like just regular board games. Give me all the cards, give me everything else. But this game with its app, absolutely fantastic. I cannot recommend this game enough. Well, thank you once again for joining me today. As always, I please ask you to like this video on YouTube, on Board Game Geek on Facebook, or even on X. Please leave me a comment on any one of those platforms, and I'll get to those comments just as soon as I can. And if you like the videos I do here, if you haven't done so already, I humbly ask you to click on the subscription button and even click on the bell and be notified when I drop new videos. And also, if you like the videos I do here, I also post videos over on the Discriminating Gamers channel. Over there, I'll post some reviews, some unboxings, and some playthroughs. I'll leave a link to Cody's channel and the details below. You know, I broke my finger last week. On the other hand, I'm okay.